Thank you for joining this webinar. It will last 45 minutes, no more normally. And I am Professor Michel Kalita. I am Emeritus Professor and President of the Business Science Institute. Professor Mitev, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Natalie Mitev, and I'm in charge of the online English doctorate in business administration degree that BSI, the Business Science Institute, offers.
Thank you, Professor Mitev. Thank you, Natalie. Professor Hélène Fernley, can you introduce yourself, please? The name, you know, just below the photo is not correct.
It's mine so, twice.
Of course, I can introduce myself. So, my name is Elaine Fernley. I'm a professor of computer science and business information systems. I've been with the BSI for about 6 months now. I'm delighted to be a member of faculty there, and also delighted to have taken on the role of the UK coordinator as well. And looking forward to talking a little bit more about my role at the Business Science Institute and what a DBA can do for you.
Thank you very
much,
Hélène. So, first of all, we will introduce some technical advice very rapidly, and then I will say some general word about Business Science Institute, and then Professor Fernley and Professor Mitev will present the English Online Executive DBA, and specifically the group that we will organize in UK. And then we will be, of course, available to answer all your questions. Some technical advice, because there are a lot of people that join this webinar, your microphone are off, but you can ask questions, you can make comments, either through the chat or either through the Q&A, and we will answer your question. You can also send a question by email, and of course, we will answer all the questions at the end of the webinar. Maybe first of all, we will tell you a few words about Business Science Institute. Business Science Institute has been created 10 years ago now, and originally it has been created to meet the demand of manager with experience holding an MBA or the equivalent of an MBA. And you know, this manager, they wanted to take a step back from their managerial practices, managerial experience. They wanted to reflect on and write a thesis, and eventually they wanted to publish a book. And the beginning of the story was 10 years ago in 2012. And so today at the end of, in December, today in January, what are we? We are an international academic network organization. We focus only on DBA, and on that side, we can say that we are quite unique. We are a non-for-profit organization based in Luxembourg, and we are very proud about that, one of the few DBA internationally accredited by AMBA. There are around 10 DBA accredited by AMBA in all the world. We are also, of course, in the Dubai ranking, and we are a very large and international organization. Today, we have more than 230 DBA students. We say students, but they are not very young. The average age is 45, 46. So we have more than 230 students in progress. We are open in the past nearly 60 groups in 11 countries, and our manager, our doctoral student manager, they come from nearly 50 countries. What is important to know is that our system is functioning very well, because we organize more than 130 DBA defense. We are a very large network of professors. We have more than 100 professors, and among them 80 are fellow. It means that they supervise and they teach. We teach in French. You understand that I am French. We teach also in English. That's why my colleagues are here. And we teach also in German. And soon we will teach in Spanish, I think. One characteristic of our program and of our organization is that we decided to publish book to explain very clearly what we expect from our students. And we publish more than 40 books. Half of them have been published by a professor, and the other half has been published by our doctor. It means that more than 20 books have been published by the doctor. And you can find all this information on our website. You have the link here, and also you have a tab which is Impact Knowledge, where you can find a lot of resources published by our professor. We recently coordinated a book, The Doctor of our Business Administration, taking your professional practice to the next level. And of course, we advise all our applicants to have a look on this book. Our students are coming from all the world. I said before, around 50 countries. We have students from a manager from Australia, Singapore, South America, United States, Europe, of course, Africa. And we are, as I said before, AMBA accredited. Maybe Elaine, you can explain why an executive DBA?
Of course I can, yes, Michael. And I'm going to start with the beyond the MBA comment there. I spent 11 years being a director of an MBA program, a very large MBA program, graduating, well, nearly 1,000 students a year. And if you Google me, you can find out which program that was. Great program, great students. But what I realized was that there were many people who could push themselves a bit further and who were looking for a bit more. They didn't simply want to be taught an MBA and the techniques, frameworks and tools to become a successful manager. What they were really looking for, maybe not straight after the MBA, but certainly a couple of years later, was to take themselves one step further, to really push themselves and to learn more critical and analytical skills and to be able to really help industry and businesses in the challenges of today. Now, traditionally, people would think about doing a PhD, but a PhD is not really ideal for somebody who's in the world of business, who's working at pace in a highly disruptive environment, and who doesn't necessarily want to go on to be an academic. That's where the DBA comes in. And the DBA is a relatively new qualification. However, it's particularly for people who want to turn themselves from being manager practitioners into manager researchers, people who want to be able to take a research idea and work out how to apply that in a practical way in a business setting. And that's what it's really for. It's for people who are wanting to push themselves to collect knowledge and information from academia and then apply it in industry and to make a difference. And that's why it's quite a unique program. And it's why I'm at the BSI, is because I see the strength of the program. I see the strength of taking a DBA to really further a business and the individuals within that business, especially in today's very disruptive world. So I think that for me is the key things about why you should do an executive doctorate in business administration if you're wanting to stretch yourself.
Next slide.
Yeah, you are right. You are right, Hélène. In an MBA, the students, they learn knowledge. In a DBA, they create knowledge.
Yes.
It's totally different.
Yes, they are. And what's here, I think, is really interesting is on this slide, what you'll see are there's some quotes from people about why they chose to do a DBA. So these are quotes from some of our relatively recent graduates. Now, there's the private reason, the personal reason. I think perhaps the most important thing there, which might sound a little bit strange, is the first one, the motivation about doing it for pleasure. Because actually, immersing yourself in doing some research that will make a difference in your world of work can be very pleasurable. You're going to be looking at things from a very different perspective. And therefore, there's a great joy that can be brought from being able to take research and apply it in work in a meaningful way. There's some other private reasons there as well, that sense of pride of becoming a doctor, of course. The idea of self-accomplishment, as Michael's mentioned, to be able to publish a book, and many of our graduates publish books, to be able to have a book with your name on the front that says this is your contribution, for that to be circulated far and wide across the globe. Well, that's pretty good motivation to have a book in your name. But of course, then there's the professional reasons as well. It will differentiate you. Having a doctorate of business administration is very different from a PhD, and it's certainly different from the MBA. And frankly, there are many people with MBAs now, some very reputable and some of limited worth. But the DBA is certainly a differentiator. And of course, it adds legitimacy to you. And to be able to say that you've actually taken your study to the next level, taken your study to that doctorate stage, really does help in the legitimizing of you as a business leader in the future. So I love these quotes, and I think the way in which they've been categorized will resonate with each of you individually in a very different way. Some of you will want to do it for pleasure, some of you will want to do it for professional reasons. But then, of course, the other part, of course, here is why do it online? And thank you, Michael, for moving the slide along. The online world is with us. It really allows us to do many things at once in a way that we couldn't in the past. Being able to study online does allow you that flexibility. That means you can still continue to work. It is a sort of any time, any place type of education. The materials that we provide are very, very accessible. And as someone who for many years led online programs, online MBA programs, as well as face-to-face ones, I have to say that in many cases, if you're engaging online, you're engaging in a far more active way than at times in the classroom, because it is a conscious decision to engage in your education if you're studying online.
That's right.
And flexibility. Sorry, Michael, yes.
No, excuse me. I just wanted to say that we began teaching online before the COVID crisis. And of course, after the lockdown, we know after the COVID crisis, to teach online is normal.
It is normal, and it's a plus as well. I think that Natalie just mentioned that it's a plus. And I think it is a real plus to be able to study in that much more flexible way than perhaps coming to regular seminars on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. Although, of course, you do get the opportunity, if you wish, to come and do some face-to-face study with us as well. Yeah. So I've got some further information about the Business Science Institute here. Michael's already mentioned the fact that we're highly international. One of the things that I loved when the first time I met my colleagues in France a few months ago, as I said, I'd recently joined the BSI, was the international nature of the faculty. Really a very diverse faculty drawn from the four corners of the world, with extraordinary expertise. And of course, the thing was that they were there exclusively to talk about DBA. It wasn't just part of, and isn't just part of, the BSI's wider portfolio. The BSI are dedicated to the DBA programme. So everybody who is part of the BSI, all the faculty, the reason that we're there is because we are committed to DBA study. Not that we've got a full portfolio of other activity to consider with the BSI as well, but our focus is on the DBA. The faculty were all outstanding. The quality of academics are amazing, and that's thanks to Michael and his colleagues for some quite serious vetting that goes on before people are allowed to become faculty members. Michael's mentioned the AMBER accreditation, and that really shouldn't be underestimated. As many of you will know, AMBER accreditation is not easy for business schools and institutes to get. And the fact that the BSI is one of the very first institutions in the world to have AMBER accreditation for its DBA is amazing. And it just reflects the quality of the programme that has been put together by the Business Science Institute. As is mentioned here, the materials are available in English as well as in other languages. The English faculty are growing. And I was very relieved, I have to say, when I was in France, that my French is extremely poor. Natalie and Michael's English is much better than my French. And I was very, very reassured that all the faculty who are members of the BSI speak outstanding English and usually teach in English as well. In addition to that, the responsiveness of faculty, I've been extremely impressed by. And of course, just to mention that notion of the book again, to have such a unique collection of books that are just dedicated to getting a DBA and to DBA study, that resource, and to have that resource available to you is phenomenal. It's not the same as going into a large library where there are resources for a plethora of different programs. Of course, that's available to you anyway, but what you have through the BSI is a dedicated resource concerned with DBA study. So again, something else that really resonated with me when I first joined the BSI was to see the commitment to publishing at the Institute and to getting students to publish with faculty or even publish completely independently as well. And then, of course, finally, just to mention that it is about making an impact. And if you're interested in making an impact in your business, in your industry, in your sector, and make an impact that will last and will really make a difference, then it's the DBA programme that will help you on that journey to being an impactful manager and leader in the future.
That's why many companies support the DBA applicant, the DBA students, because of course there is an impact on company, there is an impact on the personal, professional life, of course, of the applicant, but there is also an impact on the organization they are working for. We were talking about the book. Can you, Professor Mitef, Natalie, can you say some word?
What I'll do after this this introduction to the Business Science Institute and also to the DBA in more depth from Elaine, I'm going to try to give you a few more details about the course and what's available and how it works. So the first thing is obviously the books that we've already mentioned. So here's a few examples of books which are like textbooks, but they are textbooks specifically for the DBA, written by many of the professors who are involved at BSI. So some examples are the first two that you read at the beginning of the course, and then as you progress, you move to the research methods, data analysis, how to build theories, and also at the bottom here. So those are examples of books written by doctoral students, our students, once they're finished. So we got a few examples here. The two on the left are derived from their thesis, but the one that that the arrow was on a minute ago is more to do with the previous doctoral students, our alumni, putting themselves together and writing together a kind of textbook to help newcomers, which is a lovely idea, really interesting. I think what we do next now is to show you how it's structured, to give you an idea of how it works. So it's divided into 3 phases, which tend to last usually 3.5, 4 years, depending on individuals. Again, there's no kind of cutoff points. We don't. People have their own paces, their own speed, their own way of developing themselves through going through the different phases. So there's no. It's not rigid. You start when you want to. You do the modules at your own rhythm, and we help you through. And then eventually we get to the next phase. So that's the way it happens in practice. So you register and then you start whenever you want. The first thing you'll do in phase 1 is to go through 5 sets of teaching material available on the platform. They consist in videos, PowerPoints, readings that you go through at your own pace. And throughout, there's also a lot of help in terms of you can ask to talk to any of the teachers who you see on the screen. So at the end of each module, you can talk to any of the teachers. You also talk to the coordinator. In the case of the English Online version, this is me. So I keep track of your progress through the modules and through the blocks. and progressively you expand your understanding of how you could do research for your own topic and how that can be put in place. That leads to a document of about 25 pages that you produce at the end of phase 1 with the help of the supervisor. There's also selecting your supervisor. Once you've done that, you then have a plan and you know what you're going to do for the thesis. Then you do so. You start kind of collecting data, carrying on reading, and then the way we support you during that second phase is through individual online follow-up seminars, which are organized 4 times a year. And in those, you do a presentation and you have usually about half an hour conversation with 2 academics who give you feedback, and that's also put in writing and sent to the supervisor. So it helps you work with your supervisor and it helps you towards writing the thesis. And there's also the international seminar. So the international seminar takes place once a year. In fact, sometimes even twice a year, depending on situations. And during the international seminars, there's certificate presentations and final Viva presentations. And what's really fun about those international seminars, the main one is this last week of September, and this year is going to take place in Luxembourg City. And during this international seminar, anybody who attends can listen and attend any of the presentations, certificate presentations or Viva presentations. So you can circulate and kind of listen and see how it happens and how it takes place. You can meet any of the professors, so you can organize to meet any of the professors. And there's also keynotes, and there's a whole series of events taking place over 3 days, usually 3.5 days. And there's also the graduation. So you get your graduation at the end of the international seminar.
Maybe we can add, Professor Mitev, that we have a partnership with the Public University of Lyon. With
yeah, it's in the next slide, I think. Yeah, I think.
Okay, from IE Lyon.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but in phase 3, you carry on writing and obviously doing your field work. Using the resources we have, carrying on reading and finding out what's going on in terms of research resources. You have access to online digital resources like articles, books, data analysis software, bibliographic databases. You get at all that on arrival when you register. There's also methodological support in terms of software. There's a support team, the follow-up seminars. There's also monthly progress reports, so it helps us follow how you're progressing, and the professors are available for individual sessions throughout all the phases. Okay. And then I think the award is you get awarded the doctorate in business administration by the Business Science Institute. And if you move to the next slide, I think it's on the next slide more.
Yes, you are right.
Yeah. By the Business Science Institute, you get the degree from the institute, as well as the Lyon School of Management, which is a state university in France, University Jean Moulin, with whom we've had a partnership for nearly 10 years, yes. And who are very supportive of the program and are involved in, we have communication with them. You also are registered as a student in that university, so you have access to their library resources online as well. And then you get a double degree in effect. And I've already mentioned the International Week. Those are last year's Vivas, and last year big photo, no, the year before or some years before, of the graduation ceremonies at the end of the International Week. Just to show you that there are real people behind here.
Maybe the question you have is, do I have the right profile? Or, you can have the answer in one day. Generally, we answer to all the email in less than 24 hours. You submit your CV for a short review, a synthetic review, and you receive an answer telling you, we advise you to be an applicant, or please wait, or you are not ready, or it's not adapted. You can send your CV to the address set it on that slide, cv@businessscienceinstitute.com. And in the CV, please, you put your current profession, of course, a number of years of managerial experience. We ask a minimum of 5 years, but in practice, our students, they have generally 20 years of experience. And you also specify your recent qualification, and you will have very, very quickly an answer, and you will be in contact with our support team, which will you indicate the process for the application, and it's an online application. So would you like to add anything, Hélène, Natalie, that we miss?
I think one of the things I would just like to add is, as I've mentioned, I'm quite new to the BSI, and I've been incredibly impressed by the support, guidance and advice that the faculty members provide students with. Natalie mentioned the International Week, and I was privileged to attend my first one of those a few months ago. And I've never been to something like that before. I've met in 35 years of academic experience, nearly 40 years. I've never been to something that was quite so collegiate and supportive. Academics spending real time talking to students about their aspirations, about the work that they were doing. And then the academics introduce them to others immediately and just going, if you're doing this piece of work, you need to come and talk to this person. And the other academics then introducing their students and each other to the subject that people were studying, and the genuine interest that everybody had in people's research, and the desire to help them. And I think that is really what can't come across on slides, but can come across when you meet the faculty.
It's also really useful for the online English version. It's a very special moment. We don't expect people to come every year if they're obviously busy and they can't travel or there are issues. But we do recommend, of course, coming to the final Viva would be fantastic, but coming another time as well is a very good way of doing it. Even in the first year, people often come in the first year and suddenly they meet other students. We do online meetings with the students throughout, a couple of times a year, but actually meeting them and having time and the other students as well as the professors that they've seen on the videos. So it's really interesting. So it's less demanding. We say it's only once a year.
Yeah,
and of course it can also be we also do it in hybrid. So if you can't turn up, you can present a certificate online. We do that, and we also keep all the recordings, so you can go back and watch the
and I think the really interesting thing. So the International Week was great for me to experience that for the first time. But the other thing that, of course, the internet does is allow you to meet people virtually. But also what I became very aware of, and actually, Natalie, you and I are a very good example, is that this is a faculty of friends. So the professors know each other and have, in many cases, have known each other for a long time.
They get to know each other very quickly.
Or get to know each other. So, I don't mind showing, I hope you don't either, Natalie, that Natalie and I have known each other for over 20 years. And that rapidly became apparent to me, was that the faculty know each other well and are a faculty of friends. And for students, that's really helpful, because that means that faculty who know each other's research and have worked together in a networked way for many years can turn around for the benefit of a student and go, you need to talk to John Paul, you need to talk to Peter, you need to talk to whoever, because they've got to know each other over such a long period of time.
And it helps with also finding a supervisor for, and thinking who would be best for which student. So the choice of the supervisor, as well as also the feedback, who will you how people give feedback at what stages, and who's best for doing feedback on which student on the certificate, and also for the final Viva. So there's all those kind of links and webs going on to make sure that it happens. Natalie,
we have a question on that topic. how the supervisor are identified and when? Can you give your experience on that?
Yeah,
That's
so
important.
it's, again, there's no strict, the process is not mechanical. It's not, it changes from person to person in terms of when it happens. It happens usually after someone has done most of the first modules. The first set of modules are to do with foundational knowledge about what is a thesis, what is research, how do you do literature review, what are the various kind of standpoints you can use to conceptualize, those kind of foundational material. It's important that to go through those, because there's no point a supervisor doing that with a student. It's more important for the supervisor to help the student develop the thesis rather than delivering and communicating that knowledge. So that people go through this. They also and at the end of each of those modules, I have a conversation with them. And I also I'm in touch with the people who've taught the various modules. And what we also try to do is that we try to make people do assignments for modules in relationship to their topic. So one example of a simple assignment would be, how do you think about your topic now after you've watched this module? Okay, so how it's changed in your understanding of how you could research your topic, and all those interactions with the material, with people, and with me, we get an understanding of what kind of direction the doctoral student is moving towards. And clearly they would be also situated within a management discipline, so human resource management or marketing or supply chain or finance or whatever it is. So and also in terms of what choices they're going to make in their methodology. So in whether they're going to do questionnaire, whether they're going to do interviews, whether they're going to use financial data and do statistical work. So having those choices becoming to crystallize for a doctoral student gives me idea about who would be the best and who to approach about the possibility of supervising the doctoral student. So at that point, if the student, the idea is that the student starts working on the certificate document, and with a work in progress, how far they've got, we exchange on with this text, and I approach potential supervisors, and then the supervisor has a Zoom with a student, and then I get feedback from both of them, and then we go ahead with that person if it works out. The other rule as well is that I also seek feedback and further potential names of colleagues from other colleagues at BSI. So I get, and there's also internal databases. We also have profiles of everybody, so that helps. And then the other rule too is that we're not going to make someone supervise too many doctoral students, because there's a number. If they've already got so many, we don't ask them. So we also keep that on the database, because there's no point having too many students. If you supervise too many doctoral students, you end up doing a bad job. So, and it's also not right in terms of resources and allocation of time, etc. So there's those kind of criteria which fall into the picture. And it's usually, it doesn't happen in one go. It's a slow process. It happens usually within a year and a half of the person joining and taking the modules. Yeah.
Elaine.
And at that point, then the person can work towards the certificate, which is a thesis project proposal, which then gets examined for the certificate.
Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Elaine, I have a question. I have another question that could be for you. In the UK, if we work online, will we have the opportunity to meet faculty member, for example, in London?
Yeah, of course. So the nature of having a relationship with a supervisor is that you will inevitably meet them online, of course, because this is an online program, but inevitably you'll meet them face to face as well. That relationship will evolve in such a way that you can no doubt arrange informally to meet. But in addition to that, what we intend to do is have formal seminars and meetings in London as well. So I do want to emphasize that personalized nature of the program. So yes, there will be formal activity taking place in London where people will be meeting in groups. But in addition to that, and I think it's very important to think about this, is that informal interaction with your supervisor, which will take place online. And frankly, I think will inevitably also result in you meeting in an informal way, face to face too. Because that's the nature of supervision, is that it does become a very close relationship, that supervisor-supervisee relationship. But in addition to that, of course, as I've mentioned, there will be the formal meetings in London to help you on your study at the appropriate points in time.
Sometimes it's during those face-to-face meetings that people can, we've had that happen in the past, where at the international seminar, people spotted, they talk and they meet and they exchange, and then they someone gets back to me saying, I'm interested in supervising this student, or a student comes to me saying, I'd like to have that person as a supervisor. That can happen through the face-to-face as well.
I have another question,
which is good, which is really good.
I have another question about the examination, how the control are organized, how the exams are organized.
There's no exams. There's the certificate, which is a formal exam, but there's no exam. The way you go through the modules is that there's essays to do at the end of each module, and then that's sent to the teacher, and who produces some feedback in writing, and you can talk to that teacher. Okay, and if the teacher says that it's not so good, etc., what you're allowed to do it again, and to improve it. The idea is not to kind of make you go through obstacles. It's not an obstacle race. It's a developmental path. So what we want you to go through is improve and progress through it, and develop your mind around what it is to do research on this topic through all the material you're given. So it's not a summative assessment, that's a technical term, it's formative assessment.
It's very different from the MBA on that side. We don't control knowledge acquisition. We control the final output. It means we control the thesis. The thesis is a result of the process. And for us, what is important is the thesis at the end of the process. And all what we are doing is for the development, for the progress of the thesis.
Yeah. Could I just make a comment about the certificate as well? So there are two occasions when you, in British terms, we would say defend your work. So there's that final defence at the end, which everybody's kind of familiar with, that idea of, well, you go in at the end and you fight for your DBA, but it's not like that at the DBA stage, really. There's two stages. The certificate stage, you come to present your work to a panel of professors, 3, 4, 5 professors, but the presentation is very interactive. So the professors are there to help you and to support you, and to allow you to almost think live about your work. So I've fortunately sat as a evaluator on 2 certificate panels a few months ago, and they were brilliant. They were absolutely great. Just hear what the students were thinking about their work, to hear the professors provide advice and feedback in a very collegiate way. That's after the first 5 taught modules. And then you do your final defence at the end. And again, I was privileged to be in that final defence on a number of occasions at in Paris a few months ago, but being on a panel once. And in that stage, at that stage, it's quite different to the normal UK system, which actually is a bit dull, where it is a bit dull, where you go in and you talk about your work for about an hour to 2 people. The French system is slightly different. So you do go into a room with more people.
It's European, in fact. It's also
it's a European approach.
It's also Dutch and German, and they all do that, and Scandinavian and Danish, etc. They all do it that way. Yeah.
And indeed they bring their family and friends as well.
Yeah.
So
there's food afterwards.
Yeah, the DBA Viva that I was one of the examiners on, and the student was presenting to the examiners, and I think there was 4 of us. But again, it was a conversation. But behind us, there was an audience. Yeah. Now that might sound a bit daunting, but everybody was having such fun. And in this particular case, this student, her husband was sat just behind me, and there was a couple of her friends. And rather than it being a very dull and dry and very, I have to say, British Viva, it was just much more of a celebration of and a debate and a conversation about the work. And it was a lovely experience.
The other thing we also do is that we often, on the panels for the final defense, we often have, it's almost, I mean, we try every single time now to have an alumni, someone who's already got the DBA at BSI, so who knows the system and who's obviously interested in the topic or following it, and who's also on the panel, which is interesting because it's someone who will be what we call a researcher manager, so someone who knows the practice but who also knows research and can have insights and participate in that discussion, which is great. It works really well to have ex DBA doctoral students come back for new current students. It's lovely. It's really nice. It adds a little bit of extra dimension to it all. It's not just academics, it's also practitioners.
To the audience, any other question you would like to ask? You can use the chat. You can use also the Q&A. On my email, I have another question. What are the position of the people who are in the DBA? Based on your experience, Natalie, what are the position
their positions?
Their position.
Professional position.
Yeah, professional position.
They're usually mid to, very often, I will say roughly mid-managers, supervisors, project managers, those kind of things. Sometimes higher, depending on, their age. The age comes into it, and the country they're in as well. But usually the mid-managers. And consultants, a lot of them are consultants.
Yeah,
I do, but I have to again say I think you're being quite modest there, because I know a few months ago I sat and had lunch and turned around to a student who was sat next to me and asked what he did for a living, to discover that he was a senior politician at cabinet level in a particular country.
Depends which country. It depends on the country pretty much. And the age. And they are from all sorts of sectors. They could be. We had people from Google. We had people from the car industry in Germany. We've got people from the retail industry in Dubai. We've had people from the health sector in Australia. All sorts. Yeah.
I have a question. Maybe it's the last question that we will be able to answer. How the topic of the thesis is specified and who did it?
No, it comes from the candidates. The reason why
it's not the professor. It's not the professor who specifies.
It's not like the PhD. No, you do your own. This is your choice, not ours. Yeah, and your choice is most. I mean, all our students, all our doctoral students, come with things they want to address in their work environment and based on their experiences, and so they come with issues, problems, things they'd like to improve. So that's what drives them. And what's most interesting from my perspective is turning that into a thesis. So so to enable them to go deeper and to get a much more kind of powerful grasp of how they can address that issue or that problem that they've encountered, something they want to address in their work environment at the stage they're at.
Thank you. Maybe we can finish in telling that in a DBA there are two pillars. One pillar is the managerial experience of the candidate, of the applicant. And the second pillar, of course, is the knowledge, it's the literature. And the DBA is fundamentally based on these two pillars. Maybe you can hear my alarm.
What's interesting, carrying on, just to finish off, what's also very interesting from my point of view is as management academics, it's fantastic to be able to work with practitioners who've got such experiences, because management research cannot function without that. So the exchanges which happen and the exchange, so this co-creation of knowledge, really.
Absolutely. Professor Fernley, a last word.
Okay, so just a last word from me. I'm hoping that this webinar has been really helpful for everybody. But what I will be doing is writing to everyone and providing them with the opportunity to have a one-to-one conversation with me about the programme, if you wish. So you'll get that email from me in the next couple of days. And really, if there's anything you wish to ask on a one-to-one basis of me, then I'm more than happy to have that conversation with you.
And she's called Elaine Fernley, not Natalie Mitchell.
I know. That's yes. So when you get an email from Elaine Fernley, that's me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Professor Fernley. Thank you very much, Professor Mitev, and thank you for the participant to this webinar. We will contact you very soon. Thank you and bye bye. See you soon.